she is 58, and she's still paying off a credit card she first opened in her 20s. Kitchen table is not the same one. The bank has changed more than once, but in 30 years the balance has never reached zero. It is late and the house is quiet. On the table is a statement whose shape she already knows by heart. The balance is not dramatic. A few £1,000s. It has been a few £1,000s, give or take, for years. That is the part that is hard to explain to anyone. This is not a new problem she is solving. It is an old one she has been maintaining. The balance is the same size it was when she was 29. For most of her adult life, she has ticked the same small box. Minimum payment, always paid, never missed, never cleared. No one in her life knows it is still there. Her children are grown. Her colleagues assume that at 58, with a steady job, this kind of thing is long behind her. That assumption is its own quiet weight, because the longer a balance lasts, the more it starts to feel like a secret rather than a sum. So how does someone careful enough to never miss a payment end up paying for 30 years and still owing? It started small and it started young. A first credit card in her 20s. A store card for the things a young adult wanted and could not quite afford yet. A catalogue account. None of it felt like debt at the time. It felt like normal life starting. The thing that took hold was not any single purchase. It was a habit, paying the minimum when money was tight, telling herself she would clear it properly next month when things eased. Things never quite eased. And every time the balance came close to zero, life topped it back up. A car that failed its MOT. A boiler in January. School costs. A divorce that turned one household into two. A redundancy that lasted 4 months. Every time the card was there, and every time the minimum payment made it survivable. At one point, she did the responsible thing. She rolled it all into a loan to tidy it up. The loan got paid. The cards filled again. The debt did not leave. It just changed address. She always paid. So why did paying never get her to the end? To understand that, you have to look at how a minimum payment is actually built. On most cards, the minimum is set up to cover that month's interest first. Then it takes only a small slice of the balance itself, often around 1%. So the balance falls by roughly 1% a month. Almost nothing at the start is actually clearing the debt. Here is what that means over time. The Bank of England has put the typical interest rate on credit card debt at just over 21%. At that rate, paying only the minimum, a balance of a few £1,000s can take more than 25 years to clear. That is not a trick of her particular card. That is the ordinary maths. A balance opened in your 20s can, realistically, still be sitting there in your 50s. The regulator has measured this directly. The Financial Conduct Authority looked at people stuck in what it calls persistent debt. People who, over a year and a half, pay more in interest and charges than they take off what they owe. It found that those customers pay, on average, around £2.50 in interest and charges for every single pound they actually clear. £2.50 to make £1 of progress. When the regulator examined this, there were around 4 million accounts in that position. She is somewhere inside those numbers. Surveys of the over 50s find that around 45% are still managing debt. The average amount still owed is just under £24,000. This is not a young person's problem that older people have escaped. For many, it is the same balance, simply older. Nearly a third of over 50s are still carrying a credit card. And store cards are often still on the books too, at around £1,000 on average. When people in her position finally reach out for help, the numbers are not small either. The average person who starts debt advice with step change arrives owing just under £20,000. Her few thousand on a card is not an extreme story. It is an ordinary one that simply never ended. So sit with the real question. If the maths is built this way, was 30 years of paying ever going to be enough? This was never a story about a woman who is bad with money. She paid, on time, for 3 decades. The product simply works in a way that, if you only ever pay the minimum, keeps the balance alive, almost indefinitely. A minimum payment that clears the interest before it touches the balance is not an accident of the system. It is part of how these products make money. And the rules only require the lender to step in after 18 months, and again after 36. A balance can quietly outlast most of a working life before anything is obliged to change. There is a cost in this that never shows up on a statement. It is not only the interest, it is 30 years of a low background hum of owing. A number she stops really seeing because it has always been there. And underneath it, a quiet shame that compounds alongside the interest. Because surely, by now, it should be gone. In 30 years, she has never once said the figure out loud to anyone. But 30 years of always paying is not evidence that she failed. It is evidence that the maths was never designed to let her finish. The balance is information about a product. It is not a verdict on her. So, one move. Not a budgeting system, not another loan to move it around again. One conversation. Step Change and Citizens Advice both offer free, confidential debt advice. And there is something specific worth asking about. Under those persistent debt rules, a card provider is required to help a customer who has been stuck on the minimum for years find a way to repay the balance in a reasonable period. Where someone cannot realistically clear it faster, the lender also has to consider whether to reduce or freeze the interest. That will not always happen. But it is a question worth putting to them, and a free advisor can put it alongside her. The balance is not zero tonight. It will not be zero tomorrow. But there is a difference between maintaining a debt for another 30 years and finally giving it an ending with a date on it. For the first time, paying it could actually mean finishing it. If this story feels familiar, this channel exists for exactly that reason. You can subscribe for more calm, documentary-style stories about money, debt, and real life in the UK.